Who's your favorite son?
My favorite son? That's a nasty question. All my 3 sons are favorite, but I think you're my favorite youngest son.
Creating a brighter future starts with a conversation. Moments of connection between generations. Experiences shared, lessons learned. This is Talk to Me.
As an aspiring entrepreneur,
Right?
chances are you go through cycles of business.
Yeah.
And more likely than not, your business idea will be a failure.
Not a failure, learning.
Okay, learning. What's your advice on how to overcome that failure and continue on with the next impactful idea?
Anything you want to do that is unique and new is probably not that easy, because otherwise someone else would have done it already. So there are always some things along the way that might give you a challenge. So I don't think they're failures. And when I interview people and they say how wonderful they are and they've done nothing wrong in their lives, don't hire them because they haven't learned anything. Edison was saying I had 1,000 learnings or whatever before he invented the light bulb or whatever that expression was. So anything we do in life has to be learned. The first time we grew up as little kids and had to put our hands on a hot stove was not a pleasant feeling, but we never put a hand on a hot stove again.
You put my hand on the hot stove.
I put your hand on the stove.
Make me learn earlier than later.
Thank you very much.
If you were not CEO, what would you be doing right now?
Well, it's not important to be CEO because that's a title you can give to anybody. We all have to be good human beings. It's not important to be a CEO. It's important to be in a job that you can be who you are, that you can develop to your full potential, that you can make a positive contribution. I've always been happy in most of the jobs, if not all of the jobs I did. Never aspired to be a CEO. These things are not under your control. In fact, if you're so obsessed to becoming a CEO, you're probably making your own life miserable. When it happens, it's not something you aspire to, but it's a responsibility you take. It's because you like what you do, and that's what makes you successful. If you can live your passion in your professional environment as well, then you have a higher chance of being successful. So you need to pursue that. And I don't know what I would have done. I was pretty happy in my previous job as well. I wasn't dying to move out, so I might have been still there or do some other things now.
You can always go back to your very first job ever, right?
I could go back to my first job ever, a milkman in the Netherlands.
A milkman in the Netherlands. Less responsibility.
No, equal responsibility, because a lot of people depend on you. Think about all these old people that cannot get out of their houses if you don't bring in the milk or the dairy products, our famous cheese. Think what would happen to them.
Does milkman still exist?
No, unfortunately it doesn't anymore.
Before you started as a CEO, you'd always done initiatives that were social good, but nothing really to the extent and to the reach that you've had now. What was the catalyst that made you realize business can be a force for good?
I always felt that the role of business should be to make a positive contribution to society. Otherwise, why would it be there? Why would people allow it to be there? So if anybody who is in business can't explain what they do to help others, to make a positive contribution, they should really ask themselves why they are there in the first place. You cannot have a company that rips off other people, be successful long term, or that pollutes and lets others see the consequences of that pollution, or behaves corruptly, or tries to influence others in an undemocratic way. All that increasingly will be flushed out. So any company that is there should be having a positive influence. And if we all do that, we would make this a better world for all. It seems logical to me, to be honest.
Yeah, well, you hope so.
Yeah, you hope so.
There's a lot of companies out there that, they have histories that they might want to avoid.
Yeah.
So, is it possible, do you think, for a company to reinvent itself?
The key thing for any company is, as society also has changes in their expectations, society changes. So what might have been acceptable a few years ago is not acceptable now. Some chemicals that were used 5, 10, 15 years ago, everybody thought they were safe, all of a sudden they're not safe. Or some labor standards that were normal, all of a sudden people don't accept them anymore. When you have a collapsing factory in Bangladesh, nobody thinks it's cool anymore to buy a $1 t-shirt. So these standards change, and you have to be sure as a company that you are ideally one step ahead. I think the best thing of the internet nowadays is the transparency that it gives. Everybody can find out how everybody behaves. Ourselves, which hold us to higher standards, but also companies. Not many places to hide anymore.
Why is climate change so important to Unilever?
Well, climate change is important because it's the poor people that suffer from the changes in temperature in the world. We know in the last 15 years, 14 of those were the hottest year on record. The countries in the world have come together last year in December, and they've decided in the COP21, as it's called, to keep the world's temperature below 2 degrees. It's absolutely crucial. If temperatures go up, you see enormous fluctuations in food prices, water levels rise, and frankly, the poorest of the poor depend on agriculture or live on the coast, so they suffer the most. So we cannot get a human development agenda going if we don't tackle the issue of climate change. For business, needs to understand that there's no business case in enduring poverty. If countries cannot develop themselves to a higher standard, just like you've done in the US, then it's very difficult for businesses to be successful.
You were very involved with the UN, the Sustainable Development Goals. Which goal do you think can have a huge change for the world?
There's still in this world, not everybody has the same opportunities. The right to education, the right to a job, the right to food. And one of the biggest possibilities that we have globally is to give equal rights to men and women. If we would just invest, not more, but the same in women and girls as we invest in men, the global economy could be bigger by about 28 trillion in the next 15, 20 years alone. So here we sit looking for growth in the economies and making it work. This is one of the biggest ideas. As a company also, we are gender balanced, as we call it, in our own company, but in our whole value chain, when we deal with our suppliers, when we deal with the farmers, we insist on being sure that we have at least half of the people that we touch be women. And actually the investments are very good, as Mohamed Yunus has taught us with the Grameen Bank. If you invest in women, then you often get a higher return. Women take the money home, invest in children and nutrition. Men also take the money home, but a little bit less. They first go to the corner bar and celebrate.
Now I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You have to answer as fast as you can, okay?
Okay.
All right? So, what is your favorite color?
Orange from the Netherlands.
What's your favorite instrument?
Well, you were playing the trombone when you were young.
Oh, you can't say that.
And I remember you hitting the guy in front of you when you put this thing out and he fell over. But I would say saxophone or cello.
Saxophone or cello.
And your mother plays the cello, so I have to say the cello.
She's going to watch this later.
She's
so you
going
have to
to
say
watch
the
this. Cello.
Cello. What is your favorite quote?
Oh, I like Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning, where he said when they built the Statue of Liberty on the east coast of the United States, they forgot to build the Statue of Responsibility on the west coast.
What is your favorite number?
My favorite number is 13. That's the number Oma's house. It's one thing that's more important to me. It reminds me that one of the things my father always said, never forget where you came from, which in Dutch is the expression, never forget your house number, which for our case is 13. So anytime I think about that, I know where I came from and respect everybody and be grateful where we ended up.